All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. All right, before I get going here, all right, these guys, probably one of the great unsigned bands in the world, seriously, in the world. If you like late 1980s pop and rock, kind of like Will to Power meets Boy Meets Girl, uh, meets Belinda Carlisle, meets Taylor Dane. Okay, seriously, all of that rolled into this. Those are the things that come to mind when I hear it. This is Fire Tiger. This is their last album. It's called All the Time. I think the band is working on yet another record. I actually have the vinyl here and I have a turntable. So it works out good for me. Although I do have the CD as well. Just really nice people in Fire Tiger. Tiffany is the lead singer. Her name is Tiffany, and it's perfect. It's her look, her style, everything is amazing about this band. Check them out. It may not be your cup of tea if you want, your ears to bleed and you want a lot of head banging activity, because that is not this. I spent some quality time as a top 40 radio DJ, and this would be on the radio if we had that format today, and it was musical and melodic. That's what this is. Why this band doesn't have a record contract from some of the other independent labels out there is a bit mystifying, but I don't know, maybe because it's a little bit on the lighter side. That's all I can figure out, because image and style and sound, they're great. Fire Tiger all the time. FireTigerMusic.com. I did interview them, I think at least once, maybe twice. And again, just really cool people. Speaking of really cool people, Kelly Hansen is a really cool dude, right? Getting lots of feedback on Patreon. By the way, if you want to sign up to be a patron, it's only $1 a month. It keeps you in contact with what's going on with this channel. You can have discussions with other people. You can post your own opinions about stuff. A lot of times I will chime in and give my 2 cents if it's needed. If not, you'll start a discussion and the fun will ensue. But over on Patreon, I had a lot of people who are like, I don't know, what's wrong with Kelly Hansen? I mean, okay, so he's trying to sound like the guy he replaced. And believe me, like Styx, right? Styx should have a guy who sounds like Dennis DeYoung. Now, it doesn't always work that way. I get it. Van Halen replaced Dave with Sammy, and that's oranges and apples. And I think I've already been over this a few times, and I think people understand that. But if you're going to continue just doing the catalog that the particular singer who is being replaced made famous, if you're going to continue to do that catalog, you probably need somebody to represent the catalog. And as I said in a couple of videos, in the case of Chicago, Peter Cetera leaves, Jason Scheff comes in. David Foster says on Chicago 18, hey, can you try to sound like Peter? Because we had this string going, right? On 17, we'd like to keep it going on 18. And some of the fans might not notice, right? Most of the fans did. The point being, right, if you're primarily going to be playing the hits, which that's what Foreigner does. They play the hits. They had one album, I think it's called Can't Slow Down, that Kelly Hansen sang on, and it's a pretty good album. It's not, a blockbuster album, but it came out and I thought it needed to be a little bit more old school Foreigner. There was really only one song on there that felt like an old school Foreigner song, and the rest of it was trying to be a little more adult contemporary, and hey, we want to be on stations, so we're shooting to get our stuff on a radio station, which obviously in this era, and this era has extended back probably I would say to about maybe the year 2000 or so, where even older bands with good material can't get on the radio. They just can't do it. I would even say most of the 90s, although, again, you had exceptions like Phil Collins and Eric Clapton and a few old timers who could, kind of poke through and get their stuff out there. But it just didn't happen very much. So what the feedback that I'm getting is that I think you want somebody to try to sound like the guy that you replaced, and that it isn't a bad thing. And maybe in the context of the interview, he was just telling people, hey, I think this guy studied me. Then it was Mick Jones who probably said, study Lou Gramm and try to sound like Lou, because it's hard to replace Lou. And to not take it as a compliment. See, this is another thing that was kind of sort of weird. If somebody came along and started up a channel, right, and they weren't mocking me, which is most of the time, but if they started a channel and they said, hey, I want to be like that guy, right, because I like what he does. I think he's great. And some people might take it like, oh, you're making fun of the guy. But if it's a real honest attempt to try to emulate what that person was doing, it's, a form of flattery most of the time. Sometimes it's just people who maybe aren't creative. They want to do what someone else is doing. In the case of Kelly Hansen, though, he had this musical pedigree, which I think dates back to 1985. So he came from the 80s, right? And I think he understood Foreigner when he got there. He understood what his job was, and that was to try to replicate, reproduce these songs to the best of his ability, and the rest of this new band, which was put together by Mick Jones. Now, again, the other issue here is, look, financial security. Mick Jones obviously can't do this for too much longer. In one of those interviews, we find out that Mick Jones is in really bad health, and that's according to Lou Gramm. Now, I don't know if he and Mick talk often, but I'm sure Mick Jones has probably said, hey, I don't know how much longer I can do this. I've been really sick, and I go out there and then I have to stop doing that. Typically, a guy who's 77 or 78 is winding down. That's probably why we need a new president, right? We don't need another president who's like almost 80 years old, right? We have a Speaker of the House who's 82 or something. We don't need old. We need people who, I'm sorry, I like old people. I am kind of an old person, right? But here's the thing. At some point, you're probably going to need somebody to replace you at a job. We talked about mortality. We talked about the fact that singers lose their edge. Steve Perry, right? I love Steve Perry. Steve Perry can sing the phone book even now, and people are going to show up in droves to hear him. But he does not sound like he did, and nor do I expect him to sound like he did in 1981. But if you have a song that has a really high note in it, I don't know, like Separate Ways, for instance, and you can't climb the ladder to get up there, then you have a problem. Either what do? Do you retire the song? Do you perform it in such a lower key that the song is barely recognizable? No, people want to hear the song the way they know it, right? So I think Kelly Hansen, when he came to Foreigner, and, look, I don't know what anyone was expecting. I think people just thought Lou Gramm was always going to be there. Maybe this was a shock to some fans that they recruited a new singer. And, on first listen, and the album I would go back to is this thing called Extended Versions, which was available in Walmart and certain stores. It's not uploaded really anywhere. It might be on YouTube. Someone else may have privately uploaded those versions. And I'm thinking about grabbing a copy maybe on eBay or something just to have the album so I can, own something and love it. You know what I mean? Instead of not owning anything and loving it, I can add to my collection artifacts back here. But go listen to some of those versions. And this is out of the gate. You also had Jason Bonham playing drums, and everybody was younger and a little bit more vibrant. But holy crap, Batman. That was really good. It's really good. If you're going to step in and do this job, you can't say it wasn't really good. And let's be honest, too. There's far less controversy in the Foreigner situation than there is in the Journey situation. For whatever reason, Arnel, just for some people, they just cannot warm up. And I still get that over on Patreon. Like, look, I'm glad they told me, I'm glad you like the album, the new Journey album. Arnel seems like a really nice guy, but yeah, I just can't do this. I just want to listen to Journey with Steve Perry. And look, some people might be the same way about Lou Gramm. I don't blame you for that. But what I'm saying is, I think Kelly does a very good job representing the music, sounding like it was recorded, the way it was recorded back in the day. He makes, and look, you can call it mimicking, you can call it just imitation. I mean, Arnel Pineda does a lot of imitations. Like, he can imitate Axl Rose. He can do all these voices. And I think that's kind of cool, because that's what we all grew up listening to. Kelly Hansen, I'm sure, was in the midst of the 80s, right, when he started his career. And I'm sure he had gotten used to listening to Foreigner for quite some time. So that was kind of in his DNA. And so when he got this gig 17 years ago, he's not the new singer of Foreigner, just to clarify. 17 years is a long time. And some people either don't recognize that he's the new singer, or they didn't realize that the band changed singers. Folks, this happens all the time between the casual fans and just people who like to listen to the music, and they go and they show up at a show and they don't know any of the original members of certain bands. LRB comes to mind, right? They didn't know those guys. And I'm not saying they were completely faceless or nameless, but here's a band from another country, and all the guys in that country are known. Their names are known. But here in the States, their songs are known, but their names aren't known. And a lot of people, quite honestly, just kind of didn't pay attention to who was in what band. You say Lou Gramm, and people go, yeah, that sounds familiar. And they may or may not know him as the lead singer or former lead singer of Foreigner. And probably even less name ID is Kelly Hansen. Kelly Hansen, if you Google all his stuff, he's not out there bloviating every day of the week. He'll do the occasional promo for a concert. If he's in the city, he might show up on the channel, the local news channel, and do a segment for them. But he's not out there, being all opinionated about stuff. And I'm not saying Lou Gramm shouldn't do that, by the way. Like I said, Lou Gramm has every right to be an old timer, which he is, like I am, but he's a little bit older than me, basically just calling out stuff that he thinks is wrong, or just giving his opinion. He may not even be saying it's wrong, but he does say, hey, he should try to make this his own band. That's kind of what Arnel has done in Journey, and some people like it. I'm okay with it, because it's just a harder thing to do, to be Steve Perry, right? And for whatever reason, I think Kelly's voice might be a little closer to Lou in some ways than Arnel is to Perry. And some people may disagree with that. But when you listen to Kelly do these songs, you close your eyes and you go, okay, he's right where he needs to be. That syllable, the way he delivered that line of the song, right? I always talk about phrasing. His phrasing is impeccable. And I think that's what Lou Gramm is irritated about, because he just hangs his coat, right, on Lou's hook. That's the way Lou said it. And it's almost perfectly put out there. It's like, here's the coat rack and right down the line, So look, bottom line here is Kelly Hansen is a very good singer. I don't want to say legendary. I don't want to say one of a kind. I don't want to say those things about Kelly Hansen. I don't know if he deserves that, but what he does deserve is maybe a little more respect because he was given a job. He's doing that job. He's done it for 17 years. He may be a drama queen on stage a little bit, but he doesn't seem to be one off stage. You know, you can read about somebody's personal life and you could find out that he was with this woman or this woman was. There's some weird stuff if you start Googling. And pretty much a lot of these guys have an interesting backstory that goes way beyond what they're doing with the band, you know, and it's part of the rock lifestyle. It's, you know, I prefer it when these guys settle down, have a family, and act like normal human beings, like Dennis DeYoung had a family, got married, was married forever. And sometimes I think that that's like a negative. Like you don't want to put that out there because, you know, the rock and roll lifestyle is all about, you know, which girl's going to show up tonight, you know? And, you know, you get a little bit older and that stuff, it loses its appeal. It sounds cartoony. It sounds very immature. We need some adults in the world, and we are lacking adults and adult conversation in many different areas of our discourse. Anyway, folks, Kelly Hansen, 2 thumbs up. You know, Dave and Siskel, or Ebert and Dave, say 2 thumbs up. All right, one more time. See, I'm reaching. I'm typically reaching on every video, according to some people. So anyway, Fire Tiger all the time. I'm doing my best, folks. I'm trying to get this stuff out there. One of my patrons wanted me to make a list. I don't know if the list would kind of take a few days. I've been talking a lot about Lone Rider lately. That's another band you should check out. But Fire Tiger all the time. They are an unsigned band and they deserve a record contract. Somebody, anybody, small label. Of course, maybe it's better off that they're indie because they can do what they want. They're really good at what they do, the image, the music, the songwriting. So there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell if you want notifications on new videos. Patreon for $1 a month, where, again, a lot of good conversations over there, a lot of messages going back and forth. And yes, it's a good problem to have. I'm starting to have a little difficulty keeping up with those messages. If I take a few hours off, seriously, those messages just pile up and I'm like, crap, you know. So that's why I put out content almost every day. And yeah, I do take breaks, believe me, but it's a full-time gig. Let's just put it that way. And it's a pretty cool gig at that. All right, I'm done. See you soon.